And one thing I've seen Nigerian fans and filmmakers ask alike is, hello and welcome to Nollywood Fellow, a channel where I talk Nollywood. And of course, the most important question is, why Nollywood? And I've already done a video on this, and that was a video I did around the time when I started the channel. So in that video, I talk about my introduction to Nollywood, and I more or less talk about how Nollywood and my love for Nollywood is rather subjective and not really rational. But over my course of running this channel, I've got to talk with many interesting people, people who love Nollywood, people who work at Nollywood. And I also had a recent interview with Dr. Jonathan Haynes, a man who has academically been studying Nollywood and written one of the most referred books on Nollywood as well. And through all these discussions, I've got to gather some thoughts, and here are some rather objective reasons on why people should watch Nollywood, and most of it is from an outsider perspective. Nigeria as a country, if you start understanding it or even just observing it, it just amazes you and keeps throwing surprises at you one after another. It is such a rich culture, such an incredibly diverse country, and such interesting people. And Nollywood is a window into these lives. Their beliefs, their fears, their aspirations, all of that is beautifully captured in Nollywood. Now, you may say that cinema, as it is a window into lives, but in Nollywood, I would say that it's a bit more intentional. And that brings me to my next point. The obsession with Africanness or Nigerianness. In the past 10 to 15 years or so, there have been a lot of Nollywood movies with very urban settings, very upmarket, polished English and posh life, swanky locations, and all of that. And these sort of movies have generally been frowned upon for their lack of Africanness. And one thing I've seen Nigerian fans and filmmakers ask alike is, what is an African story? And they don't just ask this question, they obsess over it. Now, if you ask me, I would say an African story is any story about Africans or around Africa, including those upmarket, polished English sort of movies. But I don't think they agree, and I think it's a good thing that they don't agree, because as a result, it pushes them to dive deeper into their roots or into their behaviors, into their aspirations, fears, and all of that, which means that as a result, we get fresher content and they get content that is more rooted for them. And while we're still at stories, Nigeria has a gazillion stories. I don't even know if that's a real number. But yeah, the point is that, ranging from supernatural to mythological to historical to societal stories, there is no shortage of stories. The storytelling is debatable. Now, this is not to say that Nollywood does not get storytelling right, but it is to say that you can't just randomly pick a Nollywood movie and expect great storytelling. But one thing you can expect regardless is an interesting story, an interesting character, an unusual point of view, a fresh perspective, or something or the other that is bound to tickle your imagination. Talking of stories comes my next point. The story of Nollywood is the biggest story that needs to be told. Nollywood is a labor of love. I mean, you can say that about all cinema in general. There's so much of blood, sweat, and tears that go into cinema. But with Nollywood, the obstacles are different. It's a whole new set of challenges and obstacles, and the way they're resourceful, the way they make things possible is something of fairy tales. And I guess Jonathan Haynes hit the nail on the head with this, and I don't think anyone could have said it better.
I mean, Nollywood, when you look at how it started in the midst of this economic and social catastrophe, people realized that there were these VCRs around. And that was because the VCRs had actually started to go out of fashion in the first world, so you could buy them cheap in a place like Nigeria. And, there was a moment when people were doing well and they could afford to buy them. Now they were poor, so they couldn't afford to do anything but stay home and watch. It was just a completely unforeseeable conjuncture of factors. But the genius of the Nigerian informal sector realized you could do something in this context and make money doing it, and it just became completely huge. And now it's on satellite TV and it's on streaming platforms and all these things that nobody could have possibly imagined.
A phrase that sums up this Nigerian attitude is Naija no de carry last, which means Nigerians don't just give up. And that, I think, is very apt for Nollywood as well. And that brings me to the end of this video. But my channel has more Nollywood content, mostly reviews, but I've also interviewed some really talented and interesting people. And once in a while, I do such thematic videos. Do check them out. And that's it for this time. Till next time, this is me, Nolly Goodfellow, saying bye.